If you have any questions throughout the session, please feel free to write them in the chat and I will try to address them at the end. And in the meantime, I'm just going to walk through the different pieces of the course. Again, I'm using the AP Environmental course in Sapling Learning as our example. Some users may have additional or other resources than what I'm showing, but hopefully this will cover all of the different types of resources that you may have inside your Sapling Learning course. Once you have logged in and you see a list of courses, you can click on any individual course name to enter into that course. And then once you're in your course, you'll see that it's divided up into 3 main sections. The left-hand side has a number of options, including things like your gradebook, your class roster. These are mostly going to be things that you're going to be able to use as a teacher to manage your course, and we'll come back to those later. The center of the course, if you see it, you can scroll down and you'll see at the top there are teacher resources and student resources. And below that, all of your content is broken out into modules. And those modules may be chapters and modules, or they may be sections, or they may be units. It does vary from title to title. The right-hand side has a calendar, and it has student resources and your student edition of your textbook. So all of our SaplingPlus courses have our student edition of the textbook over here on the right. And this textbook is actually in a slightly different platform than Sapling. And so users do need to set up an account for that platform. That platform is called our Bookshelf platform or Vital Source. And if I click on this link here on the right, the system will automatically single sign me into the other platform. Now, when users first access the ebook for the very first time and they click on that link on the right, it may ask them to connect their existing Vital Source account or Bookshelf account or Macmillan Learning Reading account to their Sapling course. And if you haven't done this, then you'll need to enter in your email address, and most likely you'll be creating an account at that point. So most users probably do not already have one of these ebook accounts. And so the easiest thing to do is enter your email address and put in and say create. On the next page, you'll put in your name. You'll be able to define a password as whatever you want it to be, and you'll set a security questions, and then save it, and you'll be able to log into the ebook. And then the next time you click on the link on the right, it'll automatically log you into whatever was the last page that you were on in your ebook. So due to this feature, I'm actually not able to show how we would create an account because it is a one-time process, and it does save it, and you don't need to worry about logging in each time. The ebook itself, as you'll see, they do vary from title to title, but most of these features will be the same. If you have any vocabulary terms in your text, then you'll be able to click on the vocab term and it'll pop up a definition of what that vocab term is. It did take me to the end of this module. Most of our titles are AP Prep titles, and so they do usually end with some section on AP practice questions at the end of a given module or section. If I scroll back up, I can see there are other links here. So this is a link to figure 20.10. If I click on that, it will jump me over to that figure. And I do apologize, I am on my home internet and it is taking a moment to load this image. Here we go, it is coming up. You can click on any figures on the page and it will open up them in an expanded view. And then there is another option over here on the right where I could expand the view even further to make it full screen. But I'm just going to click outside of the main area and get it to shrink back down. If I scroll back up, I can see other features here. So anytime it is referring to a figure, I can click on it to go to that figure. If I scroll up further, here's a table. And here we've come to places that I've previously made highlighting. So as your students are reading their text, they can always select text during the reading and highlight a given color. So we can choose a given color, and the colors do have predefined meanings, so they can use those predefined meanings. In addition to highlighting, I can also leave notes for myself. So commensalism example. And I just click outside of it and it will save it. And so anytime you have a note that has been left, you'll see it over here on the left. The blue one, I just made a highlight without making a note. In addition to leaving highlights and notes, I can also create flashcards using this. So if I've selected text, I have the option to create a flashcard directly from the text. The flashcards are organized into decks. So there's a speciation deck and a chapter 7 deck that I had made previously. I could make a new deck of flashcards, or I can just add it to one of these. I'm going to just drop it into the speciation deck. The text that was selected becomes one side of the card, and then I can put another on the other side, example of birds and trees using commensalism, and save. And now I've got a flashcard that I can use to study, where one side came from the text and the other one I defined. These are also highly editable, and students from here can create their own flashcards completely from scratch, where they can define both the front of the card and the back of the card, including using figures if they would like. So those flashcards that I've made previously are all listed here. And as I mentioned before, they are organized into decks. So this is my speciation deck, and I've got a chapter 7 deck, and I can also make a new deck of cards completely from scratch here as well. These flashcards that exist are over here on the left under flashcards. There are other options on the left as well. So I could click to the top at the table of contents. And here you and your students can use this to browse to any given chapter or section or module. So I can choose chapter 7 and then module 22. And then it'll jump me over to module 22. I can again collapse it by just clicking on the table of contents icon on the left again. So as your students are reading, they will encounter figures. They may also encounter links to other chapters or sections. If you encounter one of those, then you can click on that and it will act as a link to jump you over to that chapter or section. So if it's referring back to a previous section, they can click here to be able to go back to the one where they were. I can also search in the textbook using the magnifying icon over here on the left. And so I could search for any term that I wanted. So I could search for, say, parasite and search. And any page where the word parasite shows up is now listed here. And I could click on any one of those pages to be able to go to that page directly. Additionally, on the left, we have a notebook, which is a collection of all of the highlights and notes that students have left for themselves. So while I was reading, I could leave highlights and leave notes and move on to the next section and the next section. And then when it's time for me to come back and study, I can open up my notebook and I can see all of the notes and all of the highlights that I've made for each chapter or module or section. And then I can click on any one of those to be able to jump over to that page where that highlight was. I'm gonna collapse this. Here we go. So it's jumping over to the page. It is unfortunately taking a moment to load, but it is getting there. Below the notebook, there is also an option for figures. So I can also use this to navigate to any particular figures in my text. So there we go, we finally got to the highlight. The figures in the text, I can get to from here and say like for the figures from module 2, and this will load all of those module 2 figures. And I do apologize for the slowness of my internet. As we're all working from home, these are more limited than when we are in our individual schools or offices. But the figures should show up here, and then I would be able to click on the figure and be able to jump over to where that figure is in the text as well. Let me go ahead and collapse the figures over here on the left. And I now need to wait for this page to load. While I'm waiting for the page to load, let me point out this other toolbar of options that's along the bottom. So you can click this little arrow in the bottom left corner to be able to expand or collapse it. This does provide us with the page number for what we're on right now. So I'm on page 116 right now. And so I can also use this to navigate. Maybe this will help us get there a little bit faster. So I'm going to just type in another page number, page 318. Hopefully this page will load a little bit faster. And unfortunately, it is not. And again, I apologize for the slowness of my internet. but it is trying to get me to page 318. It is trying to load it. When in doubt, since everything is browser-based, you can always try refreshing in the browser. We'll see if that helps speed things up or not. Ebook does require a little bit more memory than other parts of the system, and hopefully my internet will be able to load the other pages in the system a little faster, and then we can come back to the ebook when the internet is acting a little bit more cooperative. So again, the student edition of the ebook is over here on the right. At the top of the course, there is also going to be a link for an annotated teacher's edition of the ebook. So if you click on this, it'll open up a tab just like the one we were in. It's the same tools, the same interactivity, but it is for your teacher's edition with the full wraparound text. Below that, you'll see a link for teacher resources. There is also a link above it for student resources. So your teacher resources, these are going to include many of the types of resources that you would want to use with your students, but not let your students have access to. And so if you notice, both the teacher's edition and the teacher resources are somewhat grayed out in color, as opposed to the clear blue links available for the student resources and student help, and the green link for this assignment. That grayed out color is a quick cue to you to let you know that these are actually hidden from students. So students cannot see any of this section down here below the student resources. And if you ever want to test that to see whether or not something is hidden or not, there's an option here in the top right corner to switch your role. So we can switch my role from being an admin to being a student. And then I can load the page the way that a student would see it. So here, students would only see these first 3 items under student resources, and they don't see any of the other material below. If I return back to my normal role, I can explore each one of these things that is hidden, and I can also change their status. So if I select the box on the left, then I'll see a menu of options appear across the top, or I can note that there are 3 dots to the right, and anytime in our system you see 3 dots to the right of something, that's a quick cue to you to let you know that there is a menu of options there. So I can just click on those 3 dots and I get a little menu here. So this is a menu of options for this particular item. So I can edit it. It's currently hidden, so I could show it. I could delete it, move it somewhere else in the course, make a copy of it, or indent it. And so I'm actually also going to show this by checking the box on the left, because the boxes on the left allow you to select multiple items. And for these, I could show, delete, or move. So you can move them around in bulk or make them visible in bulk. You will want to be careful never to make your teacher's edition or your teacher resource link visible to your students. So you can see they are hidden, but they are not, and you want to keep them that way so your students don't get access to the teacher's edition or teacher resources. I'll go ahead and click on the teacher resources link at this time. This is the teacher resources page that comes with our SaplingPlus courses. And so if you have also received a teacher resource flash drive for your title, these resources are equivalent to the resources found on that flash drive. They do vary from title to title. So most of these may not be the same as the resources that you have in your course if you are not using our Friedland Environmental Science course. Some commonalities are things like our lecture slides. So there are pre-made lecture slides. If I click on this link, it'll take me down here. I can see there's one for every chapter. So I could download these lecture slides and then be able to use them for in-class instruction. Or if teaching remotely, then you could use them as a recorded lecture that you provide to your students. Additionally, you can see each one of those types of resources is their own section down here. I can scroll back to the top and I can click on any one of these to get down to the individual sections. 2 other common sections in almost all of our SaplingPlus courses are going to be your PD videos and teacher resource zip files. The PD videos, if I go to this, the PD stands for professional development. So these are videos that we've made for you, the teacher, that are going to help you with the individual chapter, section, or module that the video refers to. So in this case, this is a video for chapter 4. If I hit play,
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Jones, one of the authors of the Teacher's Edition that accompanies Friedland and Relea's textbook, Environmental Science for the AP course.
I'm going to go ahead and mute her. And so she is going to talk the teachers through what's in chapter 4 of this textbook. So they go through an overview, they go through the learning objectives, they may correlate to the framework for your AP course, so you know what the essential knowledges are that are related in chapter 4. They may include some pacing guide information, and most importantly, they're going to talk through, these are the concepts that are available in chapter 4 and how we taught them to the students through the text so that you can have a sense of everything that's in that chapter, section, or module without necessarily having to read it. It can also be a really excellent review for you, the teacher, if there's any given chapters, sections, or modules that are not necessarily your strongest suit. So these are designed for you to be able to sit and watch fairly quickly and easily during your lesson planning so you have a good sense of what's in chapter 4, how is it presented, what are the common misconceptions, and how should I be able to utilize chapter 4 in teaching that content to my students. I'll go ahead and close this tab. So again, those videos are here under PD videos. The teacher resource zip files, that's actually just down here. These files, if we clicked on one of these links, it would download a zip file for all of the downloadable resources for that chapter. So as you're doing your planning, when you get to chapter 6, you can explore on this page and pull out any resources that you want, or you can just click this link and it'll download all of the chapter 6 resources in one go. If I go back again to the top of the page, we were looking at the page right now as it's organized by type of resource, but you can also organize your page by chapter. So I'll click on this link to organize it by chapter. And so here, now I can see if I wanted to go to chapter 6, these are all of the resources that are available for chapter 6. And so this is an alternative. You could download the zip file for chapter 6 and get all of them in one go, or you can look here and see these are the different types of things that may be available to me and my students for chapter 6. I'm going to close this at this time. And again, these resources do vary from course to course. So I strongly encourage that you take some time and explore your individual resource for your title. Some of them can be very, very useful and very unique, and you may want to use them heavily with your students. All right, I'm going to jump back over to the ebook since it does look like it's loaded now. I want to point out, so the page number that's in the bottom left corner, I can use that not only to refer to what page I'm on, but to navigate to another page. So right now it's on page 116. I could type in another one and navigate to it. I'm not going to do that right now, just in case the internet decides to be slow again. You can also use this scroll bar along the bottom where you could drag it to a different page, and then it will allow you to get to that page from there. So I think of this as the equivalent of flipping through the pages of the text. I'll try to demonstrate both of those features after I've gone through the rest, just in case it does slow things down again. There is a printing option, so you can print pages of your text. We only allow a few pages at a time, but you can print out some pages for your text if you wanted to use them in an in-class activity, or if your students wanted to have them in a printed format for some reason for their studying, then they can do that. The formatting options allows each user to customize their ebook to display it the way that they want. So they can change the text size, they can change the font that it's showing up in. Note there is a font option here specifically for students with dyslexia to help them be able to distinguish different characters. There is different modes that they can have for different backgrounds of the page. They can change the margin, and you can change the line height. So both you and your students can make those individual customizations so that you'll be able to have your ebook display to you the way that you want. If you have any students that have a need for it, we have a read aloud function for visually impaired students. And so this can read the text to the student if they are not able to do so themselves. There is a faster highlight tool, so you can select the color in advance and then highlight by just selecting text on the page. There is a citation tool. So if you have your students do any type of paper or project where you would want them to cite the text as a source, they can come here to grab the appropriate format for what you want them to use for the text. The last option down here, the copy URL, if I go to this, it gives me a long URL that is specific to the exact page that I'm on at this moment. If I hit copy, I can copy the URL to my clipboard. And now I could go somewhere else inside of Sapling or inside of another website or LMS, and I would be able to put a link directly to this page. So students would be able to click on that link and come exactly to the page that I wanted to direct them to. Okay. So that's all the toolbars on the bottom. As I mentioned before, you can use this little arrow in the bottom right corner to expand and collapse it. You can also just click anywhere on the page and you'll see that that also expands and collapses it. So let me just real quick try and navigate to a different page. So I'll try page 531, enter. There we go. So the internet is acting a little bit better now, and it took me to page 531 pretty quickly. And as I mentioned before, this scroll bar along the bottom, this is relative to where you are in the book. So you can use this to navigate as well. So now we've explored all of the tools that are on the bottom toolbar, all the tools that are over here on the left, and the ones that are available when you select text. There is also one last icon in the top left corner here for the library. If I click on the library, the primary function of the library is a list of all of the different books that you have access to. So it's possible that a teacher may have access to more than one title. You should have at least your student edition and your teacher's edition showing up here, but you may have also access to other titles. Students may have access to multiple titles if they are using any of our other products in any of their other courses. In the bottom right corner of this page, even if you and your students are only seeing the one title that you're using this year with us, then you can come here and click on download our app. And this will give you options for downloading our bookshelf app for these different platforms. So you can download it for iOS, for Android, Kindle Fire, Mac, PC, or Chromebook. The advantage of this is that you can download an app onto your smartphone or your tablet, your Kindle Fire, a standard computer, or a Chromebook. And from there, once you've downloaded the bookshelf app and logged into it using the account that you made when you first set up your bookshelf reading platform account, you can log in with those credentials, and then you'll be able to download your textbook. So you'll be able to download your e-textbook and have access to the e-textbook inside the bookshelf app, even when you don't have internet access. So as I was demonstrating this today and my internet was acting a little slower, if I had downloaded the textbook into my bookshelf app, I would have been able to just open that and be able to read the book and explore it, even if my internet was acting up. So we do highly recommend going through these steps with your students to have them do this at home in case their home internet is acting up throughout the school year. And then they will always have access to their ebook. And as I mentioned, they can do this on, you and your students can do this on all of these different platforms, and you can do it on more than one at a time. So you can download it onto your smartphone and onto your tablet or iPad and onto your personal computer. And so you can have it in multiple places, and students will always have access to their ebook that way. Right, so that's our bookshelf app. And I could go back and continue reading, but we've now explored all of the major features of the e-textbook. So I'm going to go ahead and close this out now. The instructions on accessing the ebook for setting up the initial account are here under student resources directly above the textbook. And there's also a link here for how to download the ebook to read offline. So if you are interested in having your students do these things, then those help articles will hopefully be helpful to them in getting started. Above the teacher resources, we have the link to the student resources. Student resources are going to have things that are available to your students at all times. And again, these do vary from title to title. So there may be different types of videos that are available, or there's almost always, I think, going to be flashcards available to your students that cover the vocab terms for that title. And then there may be other resources available to them as well, specific to the title. At the very top, there is also a link to a practice assignment for how to use Sapling Learning. I'll come back to this a little bit later after we've explored what this platform looks like. Now, if I scroll down, I can see individual chapters. And again, they may be organized differently by title. So it might be called a chapter with modules or chapters with sections. But you'll be able to see at the beginning of each chapter, there are some links to student resources that are applicable to that chapter. And then every chapter inside of this title has a learning curve assignment and several of these different assessment types. In this case, they're called multiple choice questions. I can scroll down. Let's go down to like chapter 4. Not every title will have a learning curve. The learning curve are going to be mostly for courses that have more reading and comprehension and less skills. So the math titles don't have learning curves because they're more about developing skills than learning and memorizing. The AP Environmental and Economics courses, those are the ones that are more likely to have learning curve assignments in them. Let's take a moment and explore learning curve now. So learning curve is our reading comprehension tool. This is designed to be used where you would tell your students to do the reading for chapter 4 and then complete their learning curve once they've done the reading. This first page we're landing on is the teacher dashboard. It's a little daunting at first. So let's first jump into the student view. And the student dashboard, here I can see I have currently earned 0 points in this assignment, but I have a target score of 150. So I'm going to work on the assignment trying to get to that target of 150 points. It is also going to keep track of my accuracy as I go. I'll go ahead and begin the activity. And again, keeping in mind that we said that this is designed to help confirm that your students have done the reading and understood it. These questions come directly from the reading. If I had done the reading for chapter 4, hopefully I would be able to answer this question very quickly and easily. So in your AP students, you may have several that have taken notes as they read, they studied carefully, and they'll be able to hit their learning curve and be able to answer these questions very, very quickly. The target score again is 150, and this question is worth 15 points. So if every question that's worth 15 points, if I get the full 15 points, I would only have to answer 10 questions in this assignment. So this one's talking about the average weather that occurs over in a given region over a long period. I know that that's climate. I will hit submit, and I got it right. And I earned those 15 points. Excellent. On to the next question. This time, the question value has actually gone up to 25 points. So this tool is an adaptive quizzing tool. It is paying attention to whether the students are getting it right or not. And if they are getting it right, it does present to them slightly harder questions worth more points. So a student that has prepared well for their learning curve will be able to have high value questions and then won't have to answer very many of them at all in order to complete the learning curve. If the student, on the other hand, is not prepared and they were to get a question wrong, let's go with tropical rainforest and submit the answer. Now that I got it wrong, I do have an opportunity to try this again, but it's only now worth 9 points. So there's a really big advantage to getting it right the first time. And if each question is worth more points and they're worth large numbers, by getting it right the first time, I won't have to answer very many questions at all. But now if each question were worth 9 points, I'd have to answer far more of them in order to get to the 150 points. So I can try it again and submit my answer. And I got it wrong again. And now it's only worth 3 points. I could choose to get a hint, but that would be worth even fewer points. So if a student hits this point where they don't remember what was in the reading, and either they did do the reading and they just forgot, or they tried to skip over it and not do the reading, the key option for them here is that they can choose to read the ebook that correlates to this question. And so now it's opening up the ebook, and I can dig into here and I can try to find the correct answer. And this is at 0 points for opening up the e-points, or there's 0 point penalty for opening up the ebook and trying to follow along here. Again, the goal of Learning Curve is to get the students to do the reading and then show comprehension of the reading. So if they want to open up their ebooks and follow along in the ebook and read there while they're answering the question, then we are meeting the goal. So in this case, I will submit snow covered. I got it right. I can go on to the next question. If students have been answering questions for a while, they can opt to take a break. An extra note, if students submit their answer really quickly, the system takes note of that and points out that they might need to slow down mostly because if a student is clicking that quickly, they probably didn't even have time to read it. So it does encourage them to take a moment and read the question carefully. And so you're going to have some students that prepped well in advance and are going to be able to answer their questions correctly the first time and answer very few and get through it very quickly. You may have other students that are struggling a little bit more and may need to just open up the ebook and use that along with answering the questions in order to get it right. You may even have some students that decide that they're just going to open up the ebook from the very beginning and kind of use their learning curve as a guided reading tool. And so they can read the question, find the answers, but they will still be accomplishing the end goal of reading the text and showing that they understood the text well enough to get the answer correct. So any of those methods may work, but eventually I can work my way towards that target of 150 points. I'm going to at this time go back to the study plan, which is my student dashboard. I can see I've only earned 18 points so far, and my accuracy did go down pretty significantly with all of those wrong answers. Again, it's worth noting, students are just trying to get to the 150 points. If they take fewer questions that are worth more, then that's less work for the student. Or if they take more questions that are worth fewer points, then either way, once they've hit the 150 point target, the system will mark it as complete and they will get full credit for the assignment. So the assignment is a completion score of getting up to the 150 points, regardless of how many questions it took to get there. I'm going to end my student preview, go back to the teacher dashboard, and to help it make more sense, I'm going to use this button to show some sample students. And this is what it'll look like once your students start working. So students are showing up here in the list on the left, and I can see how many questions each student has answered so far, and whether or not they've actually completed, or what their progress is towards the 150 target. So Ralph is almost there. He only needs 9 more points. He's answered 7 questions, so he's doing pretty well. Marie has answered 10 questions. She got 186 points, and so she has completed the assignment as well, and she has gotten credit, as did Louis. If I click on Ralph's name, you'll note that the activity performance over here on the right changed to be specific for Ralph. So Ralph has answered 7 questions. He's actually not done as well as I initially thought. He's only gotten a 59% accuracy. So he's gotten it wrong several times. Again, as long as he hits the 150 points, the gradebook will record that he got full credit, but this does let you, the teacher, be able to see how well each person was doing in their learning curve in terms of accuracy as they progressed. Marie was doing a lot better. She got a 74% accuracy. Louis was 73, almost the same. Ada, she only has 6 so far, and she's at a 58% accuracy. And Adam is also at a 58% accuracy with 6. If I don't have a particular student selected, then the accuracy on the right is a summation of the class as a whole. So you can see the assignment completion in terms of the class as a whole, their accuracy so far, and you can also change the target score from being 150 points to a different target. So you can make it worth more points if you want to make it more challenging for your students, or fewer points if you wanted to make it easier. And that's pretty much the full summation of LearningCurve. Hopefully it'll be a very easy tool for your students to use. It should be very intuitive, and they'll be able to just do it along with whatever readings you assign for them to do. I'm going to cancel out of it at this time and return back to the main course page. So as I mentioned, courses that do have LearningCurve, you'll see 1 LearningCurve per topic block. And they are usually right at the top of the topic block, just below the resources. Below the learning curve, you will see our assessments listed here. So the assessments do come in slightly different forms from one title to the next. The tool all interacts the same, but the questions that are in the pre-built assignments may vary. For almost every title, what you will see is a built-out set of questions that comes directly from the text. So in this case, it's saying Module 9 multiple choice questions. It's referring to the AP multiple choice questions that are at the end of Module 9 in the book. So these questions in this interactive assignment match the questions in Module 9 exactly, So instead of assigning those questions from Module 9 for them to do for homework, where they would be able to read it in the book and then write the answer down on a piece of paper, you can instead assign this interactive assignment that will grade the assignment for you and has many other added advantages as well. Other titles may have different named pre-built assignments, but you should be able to identify them as being where they come from the text, whether they are a recommended assignment, or if it might be called an all book-based questions assignment, then it includes all of the questions from that given module, chapter, or section that are in the book in that one assignment. So let me go ahead and jump into the Module 9 multiple choice questions assignment. And this tool, it's going to first land on the teacher view. So this is your teacher view. And I'm going to explore it first from the student side. So let me log in here, clear attempts and launch. The clearing attempts was just clearing out my previous preview. So now I'm going to load it in as a new example. And so from here, I can answer the question. So from the end of the section, the end of the module, I could have written the answer to this question on a piece of paper and then gone through question by question, written them all down, and then turned them into the teacher. Either if it was classwork at the end of the classwork section, or if it was homework, I would turn it in the next day. The inherent problem with that tool, and teachers, we've found many ways to try to address this, is that when you have students do the work on a piece of paper, there is a lag between when they did the work and they thought they knew the right answer and when they find out whether or not it was actually right. So if I put down what is the wrong answer, and I'll choose this one, and I were to write it down on a piece of paper, I don't find out until after the paper has been collected, graded, and that's presuming you have time to grade for accuracy, and then return back to me whether or not it was right. Or the teacher may take up valuable class time by doing grading in class but with peers, but you get more immediate feedback to the student that way, but you're using up your valuable class time. So the problem with that is that if I put down the wrong answer, I don't find out that it was wrong until later, and I've already, by doing this assignment, I'm cementing this wrong answer in to my memory. And so I'm much more likely to get this question wrong in future assignments or quizzes or tests or exams. Instead, in our platform, students can check the answer right now and get immediate feedback, not only letting me know that this is wrong, but this is why it's wrong. So that tells me where the mesosphere is and why that doesn't make sense as the answer. So now I can clear that out and I can try again. So if we're assigning these questions as classwork or homework, the whole goal is for the student to be able to get them right and to learn from them. So rather than having them walk away with wrong answers that doesn't actually help them learn, they're now allowed to try again. And I can check this answer and I got it wrong again, but this is different feedback from before. So this is pointing out why this answer is wrong. So now I can try once more. Based off of that feedback, I should now know what the right answer is, but let's say I wasn't paying attention and I choose this one, or I chose this wrong answer first. Now I'm getting another specific answer letting me know the exosphere is actually the outermost layer. So maybe I just had it inverted in my mind and I wasn't paying attention that this is asking for the correct order starting from the Earth's surface. Okay, I'll try again. And now I should get it right. And it lets me know I did get it right, and it took 4 attempts. I can view the solution. Not all questions are equivalent in terms of their solution. Some of them, if it's a fairly straightforward question and there's not a lot to explain, it might just be a little bit of positive feedback. Other ones, it might be a little bit more expansive. So let's view this one. So there's a couple of sentences here explaining the order of the layers of the atmosphere. If it was a problem where a student had to do a lot of calculations to get to the right answer, then the solution may be very expansive. I can go from here to the next question, select an answer, check it, and again, I got it wrong. And it is pointing out, so in this case, a student may have chosen this because they knew that 2 was right and they thought maybe 3 was, and this is letting them know, you were right about 2, but 3 is not correct. So then I can try it again. And in this case, I now know that this is the correct answer. And then I can see the solution. And again, the whole point of this is that we're trying to help the students learn. So we are trying to eventually get them surfaced the correct answers so that they can use that as part of the learning process. I can go on to the next question from here, or I could select it from the list. Here I can choose an answer, and this time I'll go ahead and get it right on the first try, and I got it right. And I could opt to view the solution. If I don't do it initially, I can toggle open the solution here. On the left, you can also see my progress as I'm working my way through the assignment. So they've all turned green with a little correct, letting me know that they were right, a little bit of positive affirmation for the student, but they aren't all the same score. So the first one took 4 attempts and it's an 85%. And the reason why is that each incorrect attempt by default is 5% deducted from that score for that question. So here I lost 15% because I got it wrong 3 times. Here I got it wrong 1 time, and so I only lost 5%. And this question, I got it right the first time. If a student is going on to the next question and they actually wind up getting stuck and they're not sure where to begin, and some questions that are in the question bank are not multiple choice, and so there could be some very complicated questions where they really don't know where to start, then every question does come with a hint. So I can click on the hint, and this is designed by our authors to be the kind of thing that you might say to your student if you're standing over their shoulder while they're working on a question and they look stuck. It shouldn't give too much away, but hopefully just enough to get them thinking in the right direction. So I can choose to look at the hint at no penalty, and then I can choose the answer. And if I did get it wrong, there is also an option here, and hopefully most students would never do this on a multiple choice question, but there is an option here to give up, which makes more sense if you have a question where it's asking the student an open-ended question, such as typing in a number or a word. So I can choose to give up. I can give up and view the solution. It's letting me know I'm not going to get any credit if I do this, but I can give up and view the solution. And again, this way, if the student is trying to use this as homework or classwork, it's better for them to see the explanation and what the correct answer is than leave them stuck where they never get that answer. From here, I can also, for every question, turn on the resources. And the resources are going to include links to the ebook. The first one at the top here is the entire ebook, so it'll open up whatever last page I was on. And the second one is specific to the module that I'm in, so in this case, module 9. This course also has a link to our interactive periodic table, so our science courses, you may see this as an option as well. The total score is being recorded at the top. So far, I've only gotten 3 questions out of 5, and I've earned 56%. This basically means that if the student were to stop working at this point, this is the grade for them in the grade book, and so it'd be the equivalent of turning in half-completed homework. An important note is that every time that a student submits check answer, it automatically reports it back to the gradebook. I did get it right that time. Lets me know I'm completed with everything. So it reports it back to the gradebook. So if students are working their way through an assignment, their gradebook grade is updating every time they hit check answer. And so you, the teacher, are able to observe those grades and see them updating in real time. I can now close the student preview, and we're back to the teacher view. This view under the assessment gives you a list of all of the questions that are currently in the assignment, so you can decide whether to keep them, remove them, or add other questions from your question bank. You can also give each question a different amount of weighting if you find that some questions you think are a little bit harder and worth a greater weight than others. If you wanted to evaluate a question to decide whether or not you want to use it in the assignment, you would do so by just clicking on the name or clicking on the image of the question here. And then this opens up your personal teacher backend preview. And so from here, the first thing it lands on is the solution. So I can see that's the correct answer. I can turn on the feedback and see the solution down below. But I can also look to see what are all of the corrective feedbacks for each of the incorrect answers. So I can see that's the feedback if they chose that one. That's the feedback for that one. And that's the feedback for that one. So you can very quickly evaluate all parts of the question from here and decide if you want to use it. If you decide that you don't want to use a particular question, you can click just remove here. and it will take it out of this particular assignment. It doesn't delete it, it just is no longer in the assignment. And if you haven't closed the window back and you change your mind, you can just click Add to add it back into the assignment. You can navigate to other questions using our previous and next options. Some questions in the question bank, not all, have this Edit as Copy button. If you see this here, or if we go back to this list view, if you notice that underneath of the name of the question, it has customizable, or if you check the box to the left and see a copy option at the top, then all three of those are cues to you to let you know that you can copy this question and then customize your copy of it. So if you find a question that you like, but you want to make a different version of it, maybe add in a different example or change the language and how it was describing it, then you can copy the question and then edit your own copy and use that instead. You could also just make multiple variations on a given question to introduce question variability to your students. Any question in this list, you can select it to remove it. If you only have one selected and there's a copy option, then you can copy it. If you notice that there are several questions that are all equally difficult and about the same topic, so they are essentially equivalent questions, you may decide, I want my students to answer these questions, but maybe not all of them. And so in that case, you can put them into a question pool, and you can define that pool so that you tell the pool, assign randomly a set number of questions from this pool to each student when they open the assignment. So 2 students opening the same assignment, if you say to assign 2 questions out of 10, then they very likely will have 2 different questions in their assignment. Because you determined that they are on the same topic and equivalent difficulty, then it should be equivalent assignments for the students, but it does produce variation from one student experience to the next in case you're concerned that your students might be sharing answers with each other. From here, you can also reorder questions. So this question 4, I removed it from the assignment and added it back. And when I did that, it added it to the bottom. If I wanted it back into its original spot, I can select it and say reorder. And then I'm given a number of options for where I could move it. And I'm just going to move it here between question 3 and 5. And that will reorder the questions in the assignment. To the right of each question, you'll also see these 3 dots. And as I mentioned earlier, anytime you see 3 dots, it's a cue to you that there is a menu of options here. These is actually redundant to the options we've already seen, but it does give you the choice to make those changes for an individual question rather than selecting multiple questions and making those changes in bulk. So these are the questions that are in the assignment right now, but if I go over to the question bank, I can explore all of the other questions that are available to me. This particular course has 1,900 questions that are in the question bank. And right now I'm in module 9, which I believe is in chapter 4. So instead of looking at all 1,900 questions, let me select chapter 4, which has 113 questions in it. And so those questions again are listing over here on the right. But I can also select an individual module over here on the left and look, and so module 9 has 20. So this is an important thing to note. This module 9 pre-built assignment, it came with those 5 questions that were at the end of module 9, but those are not the only questions for module 9. By digging into module 9 here, I can see there are a total of 20 questions. And in fact, 16 of them are based from the book. So the 5 that are here came from the 5 that are at the end of the module, but there are a number of other questions here as well. So let's see, let me scroll down. If we see down here, module 9, multiple choice question 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, these are all, say, added to them. They're already in the course. But here's some other multiple choice questions that are also available to me. And so if I decided I wanted to look at this question, potentially use it for the assignment, I can just click on the image, get a preview, evaluate it, look at the feedback. And again, this is an example of one that's just giving a little positive affirmation because it's just saying, which one's the correct description of an equinox? Well, that's the correct description. There's not a lot more to say. You can also see the incorrect feedback though, if they do get it wrong. And so we can see the incorrect feedback for each one of those. So hopefully that would assist the student to be able to find the correct answer. And then the solution is just, that is the correct description. So from here, I can also edit as copy. I can add question to the assignment, or I could select the question over on the left and add it, copy it, or select several and put them into a question pool. So you have all of those same options over here under the question bank. Your question bank may be organized differently than this one, but many question banks are organized so that there is a book-based question section and an additional question section. The additional questions are questions that are relevant to the given module that we're in, but they do not come directly from the text. So all 16 of these are found in the text. These 4 other questions are not in the text. And one of these questions is in fact a video item. So not all subjects have video items, but some of them do, including the AP Environmental. If I click on this, this is just an instructional video that's just 1 minute and 20 seconds long that you could drop into your assignment. So if you want your students doing classwork or homework, then you can add the video, have them watch the video, and then answer corresponding questions after the video in the assignment. So you can include it inside the assignment as well. And we can also see these are other questions that are available that don't come from the text, but are also relevant. Above the breakdown from chapters and modules, there is also a search feature and a filter. So if I search for a particular topic, we were looking at commensalism and parasitism earlier. So I will try symbiosis and search for the word symbiosis. And interestingly, I did not find a single question that uses the word symbiosis in the question bank. An important thing to note is that I'm still selected on the additional questions for Module 9, which is about the heating of the earth. So it doesn't make any sense that that would be here. If I select all of Module 9, I'm still not getting it. If I select all of Chapter 4, I'm still not getting it. But if I select the entire question bank, then I can see I've got 2 questions that are popping up that have symbiosis in the title of the question or in the description. Let me try also something more specific. Parasitism. So I got 2 questions on that as well. I could try something more general, like community. That got 18 questions. From here, I can again preview each one if I wanted to see what each question looked like. I can also filter. So I'm going to apply this filter on top of my search. So I'm searching for community, but I can also filter by question type. Of these 18 questions that have community, 8 of them are multiple choice, 5 are multiple select, 3 are labeling, and 2 are sorting. So let me apply those filters. And here we can see is one of our sorting questions that's in the question bank. So let me view that. Sorting questions have an answer bank of options. And I can go over to question view, and this is more what the student will see. So there's these answers in the answer bank, and they will need to drag them to the appropriate category. So they are sorting their answers to the appropriate category. So this can be many different ways that these questions are used. Here they're classifying descriptions of an environment to the appropriate level of organization. We'll close that. So that was a sorting question. Here is a labeling question. So in this case, there's an image, and then they are dragging their answers from the answer bank to labeling different parts of the image. Multiple select questions would be questions that are like multiple choice, but there's more than one correct answer. And if I remove the filter for community, then I can search for, and I can see there are other question types as well that we weren't seeing. So the savvy and video items, those are going to be those video types that are playable inside your platform. We saw sorting, ranking. We can take a quick look at that. Drop down, numeric entry, passage completion. I'll apply those. And so we'll take a quick look. Here's a ranking question. Students are dragging their answers from the answer bank into a particular order. So they will be able to sort them by order. And then the feedback is designed to be able to address whether or not something is in the correct order very specifically. So let me close that. That was ranking. We've seen that. Let's look at a numeric entry. So some of our math titles may have more numeric entry questions. The science titles have many. The economics titles also have many. Here for numeric entry, a student would just type in the correct number, and it does always have a unit. So here they're saying 14% wind power and 58% geothermal power would be the appropriate answers for this question. Close that. Let me try just another quick numeric entry. Good. So this is also a question that is an example of a built-in variation to a question. Not all questions have this. In fact, many questions do not. But some of our questions, especially ones that have math involved, you may notice that there is a blue regenerate values button here. If I go to the previous question in this list, it did not have that. But so you can identify questions that have this built-in variation by whether or not this button is an option. And what this will do is that when this question is assigned to a student, when the student opens their assignment, some values in this question will randomly be assigned to that student. So two students opening the exact same question in the same assignment may wind up having different values in their question. If I hit regenerate values, that's just going to give us a preview of what's changing. So if I click on this, we can see the half-life is changing. And it actually looks like that may be the only part of the stem of the question that's changing. But by changing the half-life, it is changing the correct answer. So it is fundamentally the same question for two students, but because it has different values in it, the answers that they put are different. And so again, this is an attempt to help prevent answer sharing. So if one student gets the question right and the other student has a different value in their question, they can't just share their answer because it won't be the same correct answer for the other student. There's nothing on the student end that lets them know that this randomization is happening. So once they've encountered it a few times, or if you warn them that these questions are out there, then they'll start to realize that trying to share answers may get the other student to get the question wrong. Let me close that. So we were looking at numeric entry there. The drop-down questions and passage completion are fairly similar. So in a drop-down, students will be answering the question using a drop-down menu. So here's a question, they choose the correct answer from the drop-down menu. And if we're in passage completion, let's see, here's a passage completion, then it's basically a fill-in-the-blank type of question, but using those drop-down modules. So here students are trying to complete this sentence using the correct terms that make the most sense. So that is our passage completion and drop-down types. In filter, besides question type, you can also filter by many of these other options, including Bloom's and Webb's depth of knowledge. And in fact, an important thing to note is, so now I've applied Bloom's level understanding. I can also apply Webb's depth of knowledge, extended thinking. And so now we're seeing 18 questions that are both understanding and extended thinking. I can also apply the filter of the question types to that. All 18 of those happen to be multiple choice, but if they were among a variation, then you'll be able to choose the different ones. So you can stack your various filters on top of each other, including your search terms. All right, so that is our question bank. As I mentioned, many of these questions are customizable. And if you do make your own copy of a question, it'll show up here under custom questions. And so this is essentially your own personal question bank. From here, you can also create new questions entirely from scratch. And so you can create numeric entry or new multiple choice questions. In the fall, we're looking to expand these options, so you may see more options appear throughout the school year. But for right now, you can create numeric entry and multiple choice. And then any questions that you do create are going to show up here in your own personal list. And so that'll be either questions you've made from scratch or questions that are copies of other customizable questions. And this question list will follow you in any course and any assignment that you ever go to. You'll always have access to these, your personal questions. If we go back to the assessment tab, we've now explored how to add questions from the question bank or from your custom questions, but you can also customize how students interact with this assignment. And to customize that, you would go to the grading settings. The first thing is whether or not students even have access to the assignment. So many teachers like to control student access in terms of visibility. So as mentioned earlier, every item on the course page can be hidden from your students. And this does include your assignments. So you can hide your learning curves or your assessments. And inside the assessment, you can just toggle this control to be able to make it visible or hidden from your students. If it is visible, you can also control access by using a start date. So student access cannot start until the specific date that's put into this field. So if I wanted to, I could say, you know, I'm planning on using this assignment with my students on Monday. So I'm gonna say they can't get into it until Monday, and I will wanna set a specific time. So I could choose maybe a time in the morning, like say 7 a.m. And so if students try to click on the link before 7 a.m. Monday, it'll just tell them that it's not available for them yet. And that also gives me, the teacher, time until 7 a.m. Monday to keep customizing this assignment and not have to worry that students are going to get into it while I'm still trying to add and remove questions. So now I've set a start date for the assignment. They can't get in until Monday at 7 a.m. And the student work, we can set a due date. So if this is designed to be homework, maybe I'll only give them 1 day to complete it. So they need to have it done by the 4th. And again, I can set a specific time. Maybe I want to say the beginning of the school day. And so we can say 8 a.m. But you can set this to any time you want. You can also type in these spaces for very specific dates and times. So now I've set a start date and a due date for this assignment. Below that, there is an option on fundamentally, how does this assignment grade? So right now it's grading as homework, but I can easily toggle it over to being a test or quiz. Now if I hit save and go into that student preview, as a student, when I open up an assignment that's in quiz or test mode, I can select my answer, but now I can't check it. I can only save it. And so I've saved my answer, but I don't know if that's right or wrong. So we're using the same tool, the same questions, and we've turned it into a summative assessment where students are trying to demonstrate their knowledge and not using it to try to learn. So you can use it as a quiz, a test, or an exam. You can build out 10 questions, 20 questions, 300 questions to build a giant exam if you want to. And then students will work their way through question by question, saving their answers as they go. I can go back and I can change an answer if I need to. And then I can submit all questions at once. And it's letting me know I have completed 5 out of 5. If I had some that were less, it would tell me only the ones that I had completed, that I had submitted an answer for. And then I can submit the final answers and it will grade every question all at once. And I did not get any right through my random guessing. But I can see from here, this is my attempt. And I can also see what is the revealed answer? What is the correct answer? So that would have been the correct answer, but this was my attempt. And I got 0% at the top. I'm going to close the preview. And again, that was gotten to through grading settings and changing it from homework to test quiz. I'm now going to scroll down a little bit and choose create a new custom template. So instead of using our pre-made homework mode or quiz mode, you can set your own mode. So here I'm going to call it my fall 2020 homework. So this is how I want my homework to grade in this fall. First thing is, do you want it to be homework or quiz? Do you want to allow them to try many times and get feedback, or just submit their answers all at once and have them all graded at once? If it's in a homework mode, you can control the number of attempts. So instead of being unlimited, you can say that they're only allowed maybe 4 attempts. And then below that, then you can, beyond that, you can also set the penalty By default, it is 5%, but maybe we want to make it 15% to make it a little harder. So you can customize that any way you want for those two. And then if you have a due date, so we did say that this was due the next day on Tuesday, we can allow late work. So if you want to allow your students to turn in late homework or classwork, then you can set how many days they can turn it in late. And then you could set the penalty. So either a flat penalty of any percent you want, or a cumulative penalty per day. So this will make it so they lose 10% per day for 10 days. And at that point, they would have 0% anyway. I can also set a time limit. That may be more helpful if you're in quiz mode. So if we are trying to have our students do quizzes at home or remotely or in class, then you can set a time limit so that as soon as they open that quiz, they only have, let's say, 10 minutes to complete the quiz. And the timer will start counting down. So even if they log off, that timer is going. So they only have those 10 minutes to get the quiz done. And then hopefully that will help prevent them from trying to look up answers or trying to share answers with each other if they only have those 10 minutes to work. If you're in quiz mode, then you can also set your solution visibility. So as we were just seeing, after I completed the quiz, I could look and see what the right answers are. If you don't want your students to see those right answers right away, then you can switch it to after due date. And now, when students complete their assignment, they won't know which answers were right and which ones are wrong until after the due date has passed for the assignment. And at that point, no students can do any further work. So now it's safe for them to see the correct answers because they can't share them with their classmates. You can also turn off the resources that are in the course or in the assignment. You can enforce the order so they have to answer question 4 before they can do question 5. You can gather student comments, which makes so students have to give an explanation for each answer as they're submitting it. And then you can review those explanations later. You can randomize the question order. So if you're in a homework or classwork, you might not want to randomize the order because maybe they build on each other. But in a homework or in a quiz or test or exam, then you can randomize the order, again, to make it a little harder for students to share answers with each other. Once you've set all those settings the way you want, you can save them. I'm not going to save them. I'm just going to go back. And the reason why I'm not saving is because below here, under where it says create new, you have all of the custom templates that you've made previously. So I've made a number already. I don't need to save any new ones. But this makes it so that once you save one and it shows up here, for the next assignment, you can just select that pre-made template and you won't have to do all that customization for each and every assignment. And then I can hit save. And at this time, I'm gonna jump back to the main course page, and you can always navigate to the main page by just clicking on the name of the course at the top. So if I click on that, it's a link that will take me back to the main page. And here I can see that assignment that I just set a start date and due date for is now being called out up here at the top under upcoming assignments and events. So any assignment whose due date is within the next 2 weeks will be called out here at the top for your students. And so they will be able to see once they log in that this is something that's almost due. So maybe I can't get into it until Monday, but it is letting me know it'll be due on Tuesday. So I should be paying attention and getting ready to be able to do this assignment Monday night. That start date and due date also shows up down here on the assignment. Now, if I went into this assignment, there's one more tab we haven't looked at, which is the responses tab. But unfortunately, in this course, I don't have any students that have done any work. So I'm going to jump over to this course where I do have students that are enrolled. And now I can jump down to one of those assignments. And these students have logged in and done work in this assignment. And these students are actually our sales reps that have gone in and done this to give us some fake student data so that we can show off to you. So each student is shown here as a row. You can see whether they've opened it or not. And then you see all of these colored dots. So the colored dots indicate how well each student did on each question. The questions are columns and the students are rows, and each dot, by its color, will let you know whether the student has gotten it right or wrong and how many attempts. If it's a dark shade of green, such as this one here, then you can see that they got it right in just 1 attempt. If it's a paler shade of green, then you can see it took more attempts. Or if it's all the way to yellow, then it took many attempts. So by very quickly glancing at this, we can see all of the dark green and who is doing really well. So Kate is done very, very well. She's got a lot of questions she got right on just one attempt. Luba's doing pretty well for herself. She's got a couple that took a few more attempts, but she did get a lot of them right in one attempt, and all of the questions are right for her so far. If you see a question that's in a red range of colors, then those red shades let you know that they are wrong, that the questions have not been gotten correct. And again, if it's a light shade of red, then they took very few attempts. And in this case, if it's a dark shade, then they took many attempts. So here I can see for Lisa, she has gotten it wrong once, but she's only done one attempt. So it's a paler shade of that red color. If we go down here, Chad took 6 attempts here, and then he got it wrong. And the slash marks that you're seeing for all of Chad's answers, and for most of the other students here, that's a quick cue to you to let you know that they actually gave up on the question. So not only did they get it wrong 1 or 2 times, but they eventually gave up and they won't get any points for that question. By looking at all of these colored dots, you can get a very quick visual cue of like, how is everybody doing as a class? We can spot the people that are doing really well. We can spot trends such as Chad is actually giving up on every question in his assignment, and some of them after just 1 attempt or 2 attempts. So something's going on with Chad, and we probably need to pull Chad aside and have a conversation with him about what's going on with this assignment. Likewise, you can spot trends throughout the entire class. So if you see, a lot of students are struggling with question 5 here. And so you may want to take a moment and go back and look at question 5 in the assignment and see if you can find out why. It may be just a particularly hard question, and that's kind of reasonable that a lot of students would struggle with it. Or maybe it's a question that's using a different variation in the vocab term than the one that you used in class, and that's what's getting them confused. Or there could be any number of other reasons, but you'll want to take a moment and take a look at that question and see if you can see why that's happening. If you decide that you want to make changes to the student work that's been done, there is an option up here to edit. From here, I can select an individual question for an individual student, or I could select a student's entire assignment. Like, let's say Chad comes in for tutoring. We talk through, we get him to understand, and I want to give him a chance to try this homework assignment again, so that again, the goal is to try to help them learn. So in this case, I can select Chad's entire assignment, and at the top, I can say reset attempts, clear out all of his previous work, and let him try every question again. From here, I can also select the question 5 for everybody that was struggling with it, and I could reset that, or give full credit or partial credit. Maybe it's entirely my fault that they got it wrong, and I just want to give them credit for the question. Or if I'm going to reset it, Luba got it right on her first try. I don't want to reset it for her and have her have to do it again. So I can deselect her question specifically and reset just the questions for those that are selected. I'll hit cancel here, not save any of those changes. You can also click on the student's name on the left, and you'll be able to jump in and say, okay, so Cassidy, she's done well on most of these questions, but I see that she struggled here in question 3, and she gave up after just 1 attempt. So I'm curious, what attempt did she put? I can click on her name, and it will open up her specific assignment. And I can see all of the detail for all of the questions that she put. So for question 1, I see she got it right after 3 attempts. And if I want to, I can go over here on the left where it says my attempt. I know that that was her attempt that she got correct because it has that green check mark. That was her correct attempt. But I can also see her other 2 attempts. I can look and see this was attempt 1 and this was attempt 2. And I can also see the corrective feedback that she received. So I can select to see the feedback and see for attempt 1, she chose this answer and got that feedback. And attempt 2, actually she put the same answer and got the same feedback. So that might've been an accidental double click where she hit check again by mistake. That might be an opportunity if a student calls your attention to it early enough, where you might want to give them partial credit, or you might want to reset the question for them if they've done something like that. And then once she got this corrective feedback, then she went on and she got the answer correct. And so I can go in for each question and I can dig into that level of seeing what were all of the attempts that they put for all of the answers. If they gave up and it did not actually have a correct attempt themselves, then it'll say revealed answer as the correct answer. From here, I can also toggle over to other students. So instead of closing this and going in for each student, I can toggle in to specific students. So let's go over to look at Rachel's, and I can see every attempt that she put for every question here as well. I can also use this to toggle over to other students just by using the left and right arrows. And Andy didn't even open this assignment, so we'll need to have a talk with Andy about why he hasn't done it. But we can see every other student's assignments from here as well. You can also edit their scores. So if for question 5, oh, and actually Jess did get it right. So let's see, most other students did get it wrong. So here we can go back to Cassidy. She got question 5 wrong. I can choose edit question score from here, and here I can reset the question or mark it correct. And if I mark it correct, then I can give any % of score that I want to. And if you make any of these changes, you can also leave a comment to your students so they can see why you made the changes that you've made. Some of our questions are also in a few titles. You may see the option for an open-ended question where students have just written whatever answer they want in an open-ended space. And then for those questions, you would come here and you could see what answer they put and then decide whether or not they got full credit or not based off of the answer that was given, and then also give them comments and feedback as well. So I will close the student view of the assignment. So that was looking at each student and seeing every answer that they put, so very, very granular. But on this page, we can also aggregate that information under the question view. So the question view, instead of looking at each student and each question, we look at each question and all of the students aggregated together. So if we go over to question 5, where a lot of students struggled, then I can see that 4 students chose the correct answer, and 3 students chose this incorrect answer. 1 student chose that incorrect answer, 5 students chose this one, and 1 student chose that one. And then everyone else hasn't actually answered this question yet. And so from this view, especially if you're using this with quizzes and tests, then in quizzes and tests, students, remember, only had a chance to get it correct. Anytime that they've gotten it incorrect, you'll be able to see how did the class do on this question, and when they got it wrong, what was the most common wrong answer? So now that I know the common wrong answer for this question, I can use that and circle back with the class to review why that was the wrong answer, and I can have some real data-driven instruction to make sure I'm addressing any places where the class is struggling as a whole. Right, so that is your question overview under responses. The performance overview is that grid where you can see every question for every student. Okay. I'm going to go back to my other training course and back to the main course page now. And from here, I'm going to go up to the activities and due dates in the top left corner. And here we can see every assignment that's in the course, all listed out here for us. And the advantage of this page is that many of those changes we were just looking at after we dug into each assignment, we can make from here. So for this assignment, I can uncheck the box for its visibility and make it hidden. I can change what its grading policy is. So now that I've made my own custom one, I can set that one and have that be the grading policy for this assignment without even having to open it. I can set how many points it's worth in the gradebook. All of the assessments by default are worth 100 points in the gradebook, making them essentially equivalent to percentages. The learning curve assignments, they are listed here as well. They were worth 150 points you had to reach 150 points to get it correct and get completion. And so they're worth 15 points by default in the gradebook. Again, you can customize that here. You can change where it's going to show up in the gradebook. And you can set each assignment's start date and due date on this page as well. So you don't have to go into each assignment, into their assignment settings to be able to make these changes. You can also select multiple assignments, including learning curves. And actually, sorry, we wouldn't want to do the learning curves here. Actually, I can do the learning curves as well. And at the top, it says edit selected activities. And now I can make changes. So notice By selecting LearningCurve, grading policy is not an option because that doesn't make sense. It doesn't apply to learning curves. So let me deselect that. Edit selected activities allows me to make those changes in bulk. So I can hide all the selected activities, or if they were hidden, I can show them. Under grading policy, I can choose one of my predefined policies. Points possible, grade category, start date, and due date. So in this manner, you can select multiple assignments and make those changes in bulk. And many teachers like to go to their course in the very beginning, before students are even in the course, select every single assignment, and from here, say hide. And that way you can hide all of your assignments right in the beginning and only make them visible to your students as you're ready to assign them to them. And that way you don't have to worry about a student accidentally getting into chapter 12 on day 2 and starting to do chapter 12 assignment when you haven't even had a chance to look at the chapter 12 assignment. So you can just close down access to everything right away by doing that. Also worth noting, on this page, you can set individual extensions for students or groups of students. So if you set a start date or a due date, and then you want to change it for a student that's been absent or a group of students that have IEPs where they're allowed extended time, then you can make those extensions. I won't go into that today, but that is an option. So if you need to be able to do that, you can search in our help articles or reach out to your client success specialist to be able to help you with being able to do that. If I go back to the main course page now, I can also scroll down to the bottom of every chapter block, and you may have noticed that they all have the same 2 drop-down menus at the bottom of every block. These are where you can add new things to your course. So on the left, I can choose to add an assessment, which is the top one in the list. And in fact, you actually do not want to add most of these other ones. You can add a forum, which is an interactive discussion board, if you wanted to use that with your class. But most of these other ones, you can't actually add new ones yourself. And so you can add assessments, and that will make a brand new one of these assignments that we spent a lot of time looking at. So you can make a new one from scratch from there. Also, as a reminder, you can choose duplicate from the list over here on the right as well. So you can make a copy of an existing assignment if you wanted to use that as a starting point and then modify the copy. The right-hand list includes options that you can add that are more along the lines of resources. And so this includes things like labels, which are inactive, which are just static text, or links to files or websites, or some of the other options that you see shown here. If I go back up, we looked at the activities and due dates. The gradebook is here. I'm going to go back to our gradebook demo to be able to see the gradebook here. The gradebook interaction, the basics are very user-friendly and hopefully very easy to discover and explore on your own. You'll see each category is structured here where you can see the assignments in that category and a category total. You can change how the total adds up. That's a little bit more advanced, and all teachers probably have another gradebook where you have to also already manage your category totals. So many teachers may not opt to make sure that this is totaling up the exact way that they want. When you finish with the given chapter, you can click the minus icon, and it will collapse the chapter down to being just the category total. Makes it a little easier to navigate to the rest of the gradebook. If you need to expand it again, you can just click the plus to get back to the full view. You can click on the names of any assignment to go into that assignment. And if your students have done work, then you can click the little drop-down arrow to the right of their score and see the option to view the student assignment from there. So you can jump right to their student view from here. There is an option at the top for you to be able to export your grades. So you can export them as spreadsheet files, either an Excel file or a very plain text file called a CSV. And then you can go from preview from here to be able to download that file. Again, there are many other advanced options in the gradebook that most users find that they don't need to use because they already have another gradebook that they're using as the master source of truth for all of their student grades. If I go back to the main course page here, below grades, there is an option under course management. And this menu is special. You want to hover on course management to get this menu of options to pop up. And then the first one you'll want to choose is the participants. And this is your class roster of all of the users that are enrolled in this course. So you can see all of their usernames when they last accessed it. If students drop your course or if they move away throughout the school year, then you can click remove and it will drop them down to a former students list at the bottom of the page. There is also an option if your students are logging in directly at our site and they aren't using a single sign-on method. If any of them ever figure out how to change their password to one of their own making, then as long as your view is only showing students and not showing anybody that's a teacher, then you'll see this option to reset their password from here. So if Megan had accidentally changed her password, doesn't remember what it is, and is having trouble logging in, you can go here, say reset password, and then it gives you a suggested password, which is going to be a number, but you can make that whatever you want that password to be for the student, hit OK, and then that will change their password to that, so they will be able to log in. Okay, so we can see each student's username, their password reset option is here, and the option to remove them from the course, and when was the last time that they logged into their course. At this time, I'm going to go back to my training course. There are other options, including being able to organize your students into groups, being able to see activity reports, and many other features that are a bit more advanced than we're going to go into in today's session. Does anyone have any questions in the chat already? I'll try to answer those now, or if you haven't written them, if you want to enter them now, then I will try to answer them. So I see the question for math textbooks, do the questions ever show a calculator if needed? We do not have our own calculator that we launch to from inside the math questions as a resource. Since it is browser-based, there are many other free calculators that are available online, as well as other places where students would have calculators, but we don't have a calculator built into the question tool itself. Any other questions? Let me see. I'm not seeing any other chat questions at this time. So, oh, I do have one more. So there's a question for getting access to the recording of this. So there is currently a recording from a previous session that is available on a Sapling training site. And actually, let me go ahead and show this to you now. This is actually a new feature that we just updated today. So one moment, let me pull this up. So you may have come to this webinar when you attempted to sign up for a training and discovered that you did not have a training time that worked for you. Perhaps that it was too far in the future, or just not at a convenient time for you. So we have updated our training site to include links over here on the left. So if you're trying to sign up for a training or a demo, and now we've had this webinar, so you wouldn't need to, but if you come to this same site, over here on the left, if you click on for Sapling, you can click on this link and you'll be able to come to this training page where there is a pre-recorded session. So this video that's here now is not the video from today, but actually we probably will replace this video with today's video. Are there any other questions? All right, well, thank you guys for joining me today. I wish you all the best of luck in your beginning of your school year. And remember, your client success team is here to help you if you have any questions. Thank you.